Johnny, I think he was doing Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3 back to back. I guess they had rented Nick's yacht for Johnny to live on. So we were on his yacht. That's where we lived. We were just hanging out, and all of a sudden this boat comes pulling up with the crew, and and Johnny goes, "What should I do?" I'm like, "Well, let him on." And Bruckheimer comes up on the boat too. He looks at it, he goes, "I think I bought this for Nick."
Con Air bought this fucking boat for Nick Cage. It's After Hours at the Burgundy Room. I'm Zach Selwyn. We are here at the world-famous Burgundy Room in Hollywood, California, the oldest bar in Hollywood. It's dark in here. There's a red glow that just screams of, I really want to grab that bottle of Maker's Mark and start my day off. But I don't know if I'm going to do that because I got a really incredible guest here. I'll tell you this just to start it off. This guy just got off the road with Hollywood Vampires, for those of you unfamiliar. A little rock supergroup featuring Joe Perry, of course, from Aerosmith, Matt Sorum, Alice Cooper, and Johnny Depp. His name is Bruce Witkin. What's up, Bruce? Nice to see you, man.
Not much. Everything. I'm here.
Your name is kind of one of those names that goes around Hollywood forever. You hear about this guy, Bruce, who's got this great studio. If you're a musician in this town, you hear about a guy who is in a band with Johnny Depp, his lifelong friend, and you hear about the bands you've produced and a lot of great stuff. So it's nice to meet you, man, finally.
You too.
You come from Florida.
Originally born in the Bronx, but
go.
then we moved from New York to Miami where my grandmother was. It was the 70s in the Bronx. I was getting my lunch money ripped off every day from school. And
tough times.
So we moved to Miami like Jews do. You migrate to Miami.
Or Arizona. That's where I'm from.
Oh, okay. So there I kind of cut my teeth in music. And then moved here in 84 with the band I was in called The Kids with Johnny.
The Kids is a sort of another legendary story. I mean, people always talk about Johnny Depp and his first band, The Kids, and how they migrated to L.A.
Yeah.
So you were in this band with Johnny.
We were playing around town in Florida, but, Hollandale, Hollywood, everywhere we could. We'd go up the coast. I mean, we could make a living playing music in Florida. It was odd because when we moved here, that was not the case at all.
Right.
But Johnny had a little band that was kind of sort of like ours because he wanted to join our band, and then we were in the middle of a transition, changing guitar players, and we met him, and he auditioned for the band, and then he joined the band. When Johnny joined, things kind of sort of got to the peak that it could be. And we just decided it's time to get out of Florida because no business was coming down there, no music business at all. Well, everybody went there because the blow was good and cheap.
Miami was a hub in the late 70s for rock, and then in the early 80s, everything went...
The bands that were there to record. The industry didn't think there was any original rock music, you know. But so that's why we moved out here to,
this is where you come.
Yeah. But we went from a very comfortable situation in Florida. We were gigging 3 to 4 days a week. We'd make $3,000 a week. We were kids. And we moved out here and we're like, where's the gigs? There were no gigs,
Right.
We kept going for a bit. The band kind of never broke up. Just one of the guys went home for a minute, and then, fast forward 25 years later, and we're playing a reunion show in Florida for my mom. And obviously for Johnny, it was just, we were both going to auditions early on in the 80s just to see if we
make
could
a little
make
money, see what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
But it didn't really happen for him until like 87, 86.
21 Jump Street or Nightmare on Elm Street or one of those.
Well, he did Nightmare, I think, in 85. We were still in the band at that point.
Right.
And he didn't quit. We were just like, oh, wow, you can make some money, go ahead.
Who were some of the bands you guys opened for in Florida? I know the Psychedelic Furs.
Well, in Florida, we opened up for a lot. The Pretenders, the Furs, Talking Heads, B-52s, REM, U2. I mean... Because we were one of the few bands down there that didn't have long hair at the time. But when we moved here, we got to open up for Billy Idol and Paul Young. And so we were getting great gigs when you would judge it against what other LA bands were getting, but we were dying for money. We were broke. We started selling pens and, telemarketing stuff. And then Johnny's thing, obviously, is the rest is history for him. We're still all in touch. I think, if you'd ask him straight up, I think he'd say to you, he's just got the weirdest gig in the world, and it's a straight job to him. He doesn't take it too seriously.
The Hollywood Vampires, obviously, it's a whole nother situation. You guys just played for 200,000 people at Rock in Rio.
Well, it's interesting. I think it's way harder to play to 5 people than it is to play to 100,000. And for me in that band, in the Vampires, it's a very low pressure gig for me because, the focus is on the 3 guys in the front. The tour was fun. I mean, we had some drama, obviously, with
Right.
what was going on with, people's personal lives, but for the most part, the 90 minutes on stage every night was
Everything
great.
was great.
Aerosmith's used to doing one show and taking 3 days off.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this, but Joe hadn't done back-to-back shows since the 90s.
Right.
We just got off a run of doing, I think it was either 7 shows in 9 days. I mean, and I think for Joe, he was like, I can do this. I know I can do this. And I think it just caught up to him, yeah. Well, the funny part is we're probably 3 or 4 days into the tour, and I think Johnny and I were like, I'm going, hey, man, how you feel? He goes, I'm fucking sore. I go, yeah, so am I. I mean, we didn't want to admit it.
Is it crazy to look over and be like, fuck, man, Alice Cooper is on stage with me?
Well, what's interesting, because I know Johnny, it's just like kind of home
Just
to
a
me.
homeboy, right?
And then I met Joe Perry probably around 4 years ago, I think, over at Swing House. He was recording. And so Joe and I have become friends, and I've been working on his solo record.
Oh, nice.
Even Joe is like, oh, it's Joe. But Cooper, what's interesting about Cooper is he figured it out years ago, and he straightened his life out. He is like the ever-ready bunny, man. He's nonstop. He got off his own tour to join the Hollywood Vampires tour for 3 weeks, and then jumped back on his own tour again.
What's
And
the groupie situation looking like out there for you? You doing all right there, Bruce?
We're all a bunch of old married guys.
That's what I wonder. Like, everyone's married. Everyone's just like, oh, man.
Yeah,
if only we were on this tour 20 years ago.
Exactly. It's not exactly what you would think. It's an interesting thing to watch those guys give Johnny the respect that they do, because he is a good guitar player and he's always been an artist. I think if you ask him the question you asked me, he'd probably go, well, why are these guys on stage with me? I'm nobody. But I think this is part of him getting a little taste of what we started out to do. Somebody pointed out to me, they said, there's all these photos with Johnny, but when there's one with you and him in it, he has a different smile on his face.
Right.
So I think, for us, it's a little taste of what it might have been. I think that it would have been better if it was the band we started with, but still, you can't knock it, and it's fun. And
You've been on tour, though. You've toured with a lot of bands in the past.
I've done a few over the years. I never thought myself as a side guy in the beginning, but there was a point in my life when I'm like, I haven't toured yet, haven't done the tour bus thing, so... In the 90s, I did a stint with Adam Ant. Adam's a great guy, and his tour did well on his own. He financed it himself. I mean, I got to record at Abbey Road, which was
nice.
Really... what's weird is it's very corporate. I don't know. You can do tours of it over there. I don't know if you've ever been. You come in the front door, and it's just a bunch of desks, and you're like, where's the vibe? Where's the vibe? And then you go downstairs, and then there's Studio 2, where the Beatles recorded. But these studios are like big gymnasiums. They're massive. I swear you hit a tambourine in that room and it sounds like a Beatle record. And then after that tour, I did a little stunt with Johnny's ex, Vanessa Paradis. I did like 4 months in Paris, in France.
But then a lot of producing. Paul McCartney?
When the whole thing came together with the Vampires record, Bob Ezrin, who's worked with Alice forever, I met him when we started it, and also Tommy Hendrickson, who plays with Alice Cooper now. He's in Alice's band. Okay. Tommy and I would demo stuff. We'd send it to Bob. He'd send it to Alice. We kind of did this kind of piecemeal. But then once we knew, we had an idea for the concept of the record, because it's basically dedicated to all the people Alice knew back in the day that used to hang out at the Rainbow. They were called the Hollywood Vampires.
Right. Yeah. So the original Hollywood Vampires, we got Lennon, Nielsen,
Ringo, Keith Moon,
and Alice Cooper. All of whom are dead except for Ringo and Alice, who are both 100% sober.
Yeah.
Give me that maker's mark, by the way.
There you go. He's right.
Time I get this fucking party started.
What happened is Johnny had done some video for Paul, and just out of the blue, he said, hey, Paul, would you want to do a Badfinger song? Because one of the guys from Badfinger. And he wrote Come and Get It. Paul did for Badfinger. All of a sudden, I get the call, Paul's coming. And we're like, oh, my God.
Like,
so we got
shit.
And we did it at Johnny's little studio in Hollywood. And Paul came, and we got Abe Laboria on drums, who's a motherfucker. We did it, and it was Paul. It was him.
Was that... As far as influences growing up, Paul McCartney.
Oh, it's Paul. I'm a huge Elvis Costello fan since I'm a kid. But yeah, Paul.
So when you see Paul McCartney come in, do you think for the first time you're a little starstruck?
Well, what's interesting is because of being friends with Johnny, I've met many people over the years. But yeah, of course, I was a little bit like, and plus, he co-wrote the song that my daughter's named after, Veronica.
With the Elvis Costello
song. With Elvis. So I started to talk to him about that. What was amazing is the second time I met Paul, he remembered my name. So I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, he's one of those guys.
We're all right. But Paul was great. And we had Robbie Krieger come in and play on some stuff. Joe Walsh. There's a lot of great people on the record.
You mentioned Marilyn Manson earlier.
Yeah.
How'd you end up producing as one of his records?
I was hanging at Johnny's house, and we were all having a bit fun, doing a little drinking or whatever, and he wanted to do a cover of You're So Vain. He goes, Bruce, go do something, make something happen. Next thing I know, I'm doing this song with him, and it turned into a 3 or 4 day blur. And I love Marilyn. I mean, he's brilliant.
He did something with Shooter Jennings recently that I was like, that's great.
What's funny is he's toured with Cooper before. Evidently, he really behaves himself when he's on tour with Cooper. Like, if his management had their way, they'd have Manson always on the road with Alice.
Huh.
I think he understands Cooper kind of started it,
I remember seeing Alice Cooper interviewed when Manson came out, and he's like, hey, a shock rocker with a female first name who's a guy doing theatrical rock. I wonder where he got that idea. I was like, fuck yeah, Alice Cooper.
He came up and played with us in Wisconsin. It was odd because Manson opened up for us, which was odd, and Cheap Trick opened up for us. So Johnny and I are like, why are these guys opening up for us?
You know, you've done a lot of collaborations and a lot of songs for soundtracks and things like that. Sweeney Todd, the Jiminy Glick show, the Martin Short show. What's been your favorite project you think you've ever done? Is it the Vampires, or is it something you can think of in your past?
The Jiminy Glick and Lalawood, what was interesting about that thing was a dear friend of mine worked for the company that put it out. And my friend's like, look, I want to give you this gig and we're going to totally fuck you for money. But I had never done anything like it before. I'm like, dude, if I can, give me a shot at it. He asked me to replace this song. They were using Pink, Get This Party Started in the beginning of the song, in the movie. And so I kind of mimicked something and came up with something, and it worked. And next thing he goes, hey, do another song. The next thing I knew, I did like 18 songs for the film. And that was fun because it wasn't what I normally do.
Yeah, okay.
You know? Sweeney Todd was an interesting thing. Basically, I was just recording Johnny's voice on that. When I met Tim for the first time, he kind of says to me, he goes, he wouldn't do this movie if you don't do this. So all the pressure's on you, as he tells me this. The hardest thing I do is produce my daughter's records.
That's got to be tough.
That's tough.
The Glam Skanks. I mean,
For her, like I said, look, you got to get on the road, play as much as you can. You can't digitize live performance. It's the one thing they can't steal.
They can digitize everything else.
Yeah, so I said, go out and be great, play as much as you can. I believe young artists now, if they do that, they can survive. And then if something breaks, then that's bonus.
I want to talk for a second about your mom. I know she was very close with you and the band and Johnny.
Yeah.
I think you said she was sort of his second mom.
Yeah.
You guys reunited to play a tribute
in
for her?
2007 and 2008 we did, yeah.
What was that all about? What was the tribute for?
Well, my mom, when we moved to Florida, she managed this band that she had met the drummer, I think the bass player in New York, and then they moved down with us. And that band turned out to be this band called Tight Squeeze. Then when she got down there, she started an agency with this other friend that she met. So she was booking bands and then managing other bands. And so she kind of had the reputation of like the mom of all these bands in the early 70s, like 72, 73. When the kids started up, I think that, Johnny, when he saw our lifestyle and we all lived in this band house, he moved in and he fell in love with my mom. It was like, he'd tell you straight to your face. But what happened is when she passed away, I'm like, well, maybe we can do like a little show down in Florida. So I just put it out there and 10 bands called up, said, hey, we'd love your mom. And so we wound up doing one in 2007 and then another one in 2008. And a lot of great friends that we hadn't seen for 20 some odd years came out to play, and we raised money for charity, and it was great. It was a great couple weekends that we did, yeah. For Johnny, when we did the first reunion shows, we didn't really advertise. It was word of mouth, so it wasn't that crazy with Johnny Depp fans. The year later we did it, it got a little out of hand, and it kind of freaked him out. He didn't want to be the focus. This was the band. It was always like that to him. He didn't want to be the focus. And I think that with the Vampires, he's kind of able to do that.
Makes
based
sense.
on these guys are as famous as him. He can get up there. It's not all about him. And
he's blending in.
Yeah, so he gets some of that out of him that he always wanted to do.
It's a good way to do it.
I mean, we talked about doing shows with the old band and maybe going to Japan and doing a secret show and just whoever's there shows up, because for whatever it's worth, if we put the old band together, he's by far the most famous one. And
right.
I think like that second reunion show, he felt really weird.
Bruce Witkin is here again. We're sitting here at the Burgundy Room after hours. This is my first podcast I've done without a drink. I'm very excited about that. You're not sober?
No, I just... Yeah,
you're not like, you don't have a problem.
Yeah. I got lucky.
We've had a lot of sober guests. Let me just tell you something.
Interesting. Yeah, I got lucky.
I just remember when I was like all the movies they made in the early to mid 80s, like Daytona Beach.
Exactly, yeah. Well, we would play the Strip. We would have a gig in a different bar every week.
Yeah, right.
There were a couple great clubs in Hollandale. There was a place called the Agora Ballroom, which is a franchise that was started, I think, in Cleveland. And they started one in Miami in the early 80s. And then there was a bar on the Strip called The Button. Well, that guy bought the Agora and called it the Button South, and that's really where we played a lot. And the place fit 1,500 people, and it would be jam-packed on the weekends. I mean, people just like to go out.
How much coke are you doing? I'm just kidding.
Oh, no. There were mounds of it, man. Mounds of it.
In Florida, man.
Oh, it was the height of it. Well, Johnny did that movie Blow. We know we did that guy's Blow. Absolutely.
100%, right?
Yeah.
I saw Miami Vice. I know what's going on. Tell me about your Grammy nomination.
Mike Hyam, who worked on Sweeney Todd too, he was more like the music supervisor. And since it was already a score written by Sondheim, there was no like music licensing guy or whatever. So Mike and I both got nominated as producers of the movie. Mike, he had to record everybody else. I just had to deal with Johnny, which was easy,
And you got to play the Grammys?
I had odd mixed emotions about it because I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I here? But then when I realized that Cooper had never played the Grammys, I just shut up. I'm like, okay, stop whining.
He's a funny guy. He's a funny story. I used to watch, VH1, what was it, Behind the Music? And his was like, all he drank was beer.
Yeah, Budweiser.
He drank Budweiser. Like he woke up and drank Budweiser from like morning till night.
He played golf. He still plays golf every day. We're in Denmark. I got jet lag. I can't sleep, so I'm going to take a walk at 6:30 in the morning, and there's Cooper going out the door to play golf.
He's got it all figured out.
He does. He figured it out.
What about is Sorum's on the tour?
Yeah, Matt. He's a great guy. When I heard he was on the tour, well, the first gig was the Rio one, so it was Matt and Duff, and I didn't know much about those guys.
So Duff was playing bass with you guys?
First, yeah.
First, right, okay.
I didn't know much about those guys. I had never met them. We just never crossed paths. I'm like, I wonder what this is going to be like, and they were great.
Duff McKagan, of course, bass player, Guns N' Roses. Matt Sorum played on the Use Your Illusion.
Yeah, he was a member for a while.
After Steven Adler, it was Matt Sorum.
But he was in the Cult.
Cult originally, of course.
And then after that, it was Velvet Revolver with him and Duff and
so he's no stranger to the supergroup kind of world.
No, and Matt's a badass. I mean, I have so much respect for him because you could sit back and just be a drummer. You know what I mean? And he doesn't do that. He works his ass off, that guy.
When you're manning the kit behind Ian Astbury, Axl Rose, and Scott Weiland, and now Cooper, and
he's a great singer. He's just a great guy. I mean, I've got to know him. I was at his studio a couple days ago. His wife is doing a record, so I helped him out a little bit.
So McKagan is no longer in
what happened is when GNR went out,
of course, right,
he went with them, and then we weren't sure what was going to happen with Matt and how that was going to go. And but we were happy that Matt stayed with us.
Who's playing bass now then?
It was DeLeo. Robert
DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah, who's another
Go see the Hollywood Vampires, people. If you were lucky enough to see this band, are you guys playing in L.A. anytime soon?
What's funny is we tried to book something at the last minute. There's rumbles.
Genghis Cohen or something?
Yeah, right. We'll play here. We can play here. Yeah, they're talking about possibly some stuff in October. There'll probably be some shows here soon,
All right, my producers over here, Tom and Jeff, have told me I have to ask you about that time you stayed on Nicolas Cage's boat. And let me just tell you real fast, I do a hell of a Nicolas Cage impersonation.
Do it. Let's do it.
One time I was, I'm on the boat here. I was on the boat, and all of a sudden, here comes fucking Witkin. He's out of his rim-ram fucking mind. Meanwhile, I'm like, hello, need a drink here.
That was good. No, what it was is Johnny, I think he was doing Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3 back to back. So he said, hey, you want to come hang out? I'm like, yeah, where are we going? And it was this little island called Dominica. But down there, the hotels are not that schmancy, you know? So I guess they had rented Nick's yacht for Johnny to live on. So we were on his yacht. That's where we lived. We were just hanging out, and all of a sudden, this dinghy boat comes pulling up with the crew, and Johnny goes, what should I do? I'm like, well, let him on. And Bruckheimer gets off the boat, that comes up on the boat, too. He looks at it, he goes, I think I bought this for Nick.
Con Air bought this fucking boat for Nick Cage.
Well, he's a cool guy, Bruckheimer. I met him through Johnny. He's a real guy, yeah. Yeah, that was the Nick story.
I was hoping it was like Cage had a fucking suitcase full of yayo, 9 hookers, and Mickey Rourke.
That's I met Nick early on when Johnny first started, because that is true. Nick did recommend an agent for Johnny to go to. A good friend of mine, Jeff Levine, was friends with Nick and worked with him. So we met Nick, and I remember Nick meeting, when I met him and my wife, he goes, you guys are like grown-ups, because we like had a condo or something.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
My wife's older than I am. I met her when I was 25, 26, like very young for Hollywood. I was piping my way across Sunset Boulevard, and then I met my wife, and I was like, I'm done.
Good for you, yeah.
What a fucking mistake. No, I'm just kidding. She's amazing. She'd be here fucking having fun with us, too. Between the soundtracks you've worked on, the band you're in now, the bands you've been in, Flux. We haven't really talked about Flux. That was the band that opened for Adam Ant, right?
Yeah, what the deal with that was is after the first tour with Adam, that's when we went and recorded Abbey Road. But then there was probably like a year in between, so I had my own band again. I was up and running, and I pressed the CD on my own, and I was selling them. And in '94, selling CDs side stage, I was way ahead of the game.
You can make money doing that.
And I didn't realize I was. But Adam called me to do the tour, and I had a manager at the time. So I said to the manager, I said, look, I'd love to go out with Adam again. Why don't you see if he'll let Flux open up 5 shows on the West Coast and 5 on the East Coast, so we can do some showcasing or whatever. And everything was cool, so we were set. Next thing I know, Adam's manager never told him. So Adam's like, well, no, that can't work. How are you going to do both? And I just said, look, Adam, I love you, but I got something that I got going on. If I can't do that, then I can't tour with you. I'd rather stay with my thing. And so then he gave in, reluctantly. And I think he was just afraid I couldn't do both.
Right, but you pulled it off.
Yeah, it was interesting. So we did 5 on the West Coast and then 5 on the East Coast. And the funny part is I'd get up and open up with Flux. People are like kind of staring at you. Yeah. These girls are just like all bored. And then you come out with Adam and they're like, woo. And I look them in the face and they're like, sorry.
Sorry we were
rude.
Texting during that was in the 90s.
Yeah.
I've opened for some huge acts in my time where I've been ignored. Let's see. The Bellamy Brothers.
Okay. I remember those guys.
Cody Canada and The Departed. Yeah. Almost open for Black Rebel Motorcycle Club once. Then they kicked us off. So shit's going well, as you can see, for my band.
I always liked recording. Even though I was a kid, I would take 2 cassette decks and bounce things back. So, when I got the first opportunity to have a proper studio, especially where I met Jeff, it was like, I had it for just demos, and then somebody goes, hey, can I hire you to record me? I'm like, well, I never thought of that. So then I was able to make a living doing that, in 2000s and stuff, and I'll still do things once in a while. I don't advertise, it's just word of mouth. And
right, people just talk about it. This guy's good.
Yeah.
Marilyn Manson all of a sudden asks you to do his You're So Vain cover. Has Johnny ever put together any kind of solo record that you've produced that's been laying underground for 15 years?
No. Well, it's funny. During mid-'90s, he had a band that got signed by EMI.
Was that Out of the Viper Room, whatever that
Yeah, it was called P, this band called P. And I think he just did it to give the big finger to the music business.
Yeah, right.
I think they went in and rung up a bill over at Ocean Way of a couple $100,000.
Yeah, there you go.
And then they put it out, and I think he hired a lawyer to squash the record.
See? That's what you do. When the industry's kicked you in the teeth long enough, and then they see that you're in the movies and you might be somewhat attractive, they'll give you a deal on the spot.
Well, that's what was rough for Johnny early on with Jump Street, because when that happened, they were like, oh, you're a musician. Well, you want to do a record? And he would go, yeah, but I want my band in the record.
And they're like, no, we want to make you the next Sean Cassidy.
Exactly. And that's I think he went through a lot of that early on that made him feel real dirty about the music business, you know. So I think when he got that chance to do that P record, even though it was a cool record, really artsy, and they had Gibby Haynes from the Butthole Surfers on it, and Flea played bass. It was a bunch of weird, cool stuff. I'm sure the label, it was either EMI or Capitol, wanted to promote it. Johnny Depp's
the Johnny
band,
Depp album, right?
And he hired a lawyer to make sure they couldn't do it.
Now, if someone wants to record with you, how do they go about finding you? Are you still working in the studio? I mean, is it sort of just a word of mouth thing?
It's a word of mouth thing, but you can find it's called Unison Music. I have a little label called Unison Music. I got a few artists on there. The White Buffalo is one of them.
I like the White Buffalo.
He's great. Jake Smith is his name.
Don't tell anybody his name, dude. That's
I got his address. I got it. So yeah, you can find me.
What about the Vampires? Y'all gonna cut something new?
We've talked about it. It's really just a scheduling thing. I think now it's sort of like a band, when before it wasn't a band, it was an album, and then we put this band out on the road, and we all kind of really work together, you know. So I think if we do something next, it'll probably be as this band.
When you get off the road, are you like relieved, or are you sort of like...
Well, it's weird. I think I suffered from post-traumatic tour depression.
PTTD.
Yeah. You know, you get into this routine. And we did a lot of shows. It was 18 shows in 25 days. Yeah. So when I got home, I was just like, what am I doing? I need to do something, you know. It was it took about 10 days to like...
decompress.
Yeah, kind of, and get back to whatever I was going to do. Luckily, I had the soundtrack to dive into.
It's funny, man. You know, you spend your life chasing dreams out here in LA. You really do. If you're lucky, you get to work in your chosen profession.
Right.
No matter how you pull it off.
I feel very blessed that I'm able to do what I do. You know, I'm really lucky. You look back, you go, wow, I wonder what would have happened if we did get signed, and what would our behind the music would have been, you know? You know, now I look back and I don't regret any choices I made or didn't make, you know. I feel very lucky to be able to survive and do this. And, you know, with my daughter, I don't live vicariously through her, but it's like I can give her the kind of advice if I only knew now what I knew, or knew then what I know now, kind of.
That's a good thing to have you there.
Yeah,
right.
If I was 20 right now, I'd be on the road constantly.
Did you go to college?
I did a little junior college stint when I was like 16. I graduated when I was 15 because I knew I wanted to play clubs. So I said to my mom, like, if I can get my diploma, can I quit school? And she goes, yeah. So I did like GED tests.
Sure.
I spent like a year, like summer school, night school, everything. And then I did like 6 months of community college carrying an upright bass to school, and it just drove me nuts.
I'm looking at some photos. Of course, go to our website if you want to see some really great pictures we have. We have the original kids.
Yeah, my wife took that picture, the one on the right. Yeah.
There's a picture of you, McCartney.
Yeah, that's a different one. The first one with
this
John,
one
that's
with the kids.
My wife took that back in, 83. A
lot of great photos here from the current lineup of Hollywood Vampires. Here's you on a plane doing some serious drugs.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It's all going to be out there on afterhourspodcast.com. Make sure to check out Bruce Witkin.
Oh, yeah, Tighty Whities.
What's Tighty Whities?
That's the R&B band that I got.
That's the name of the R&B band. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, it's 4 Jewish guys and a Mick playing soul music.
Wait, who's Mick? Oh, and an Irish guy.
An Irish guy.
Okay.
And
who's Mick?
The singer is a guy named Ron Young, used to be in Little Caesar, still is in Little Caesar. Okay. Remember them? They got signed right around the time GNR got signed. He's got the record company Horror Story from Hell, Ron.
God, I can't imagine.
But we all had this affinity for old like soul R&B, so we put this band together. And what happened is originally we were called Blue Eyed Devils, but then we found out there's like a white supremacist blue-eyed band out there, and here's like 4 Jews and an Irish guy playing soul music. And we're like, what if they show up and think that we're them? So then we came up with a different name, Tighty Whities.
There's no white supremacist group called the Tighty Whities anyway?
Yeah, I better
check.
Might be.
So a lot of projects going on, from the Glam Skanks to Tighty Whities to Hollywood Vampires to producing. We thank you so much for joining us here at After Hours.
Thank you.
And, feel free to grab a bottle or two from the bar before you go. Bruce Witkin, dude, a pleasure.
You too.
Continued success.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.